Another week to forget for our monolithic state broadcaster, the BBC. These days, this bloated and unaccountable organisation seems to spend as much money on court cases and payouts as it does on programming. The latest debacle is a £200,000 settlement to former royal nanny Tiggy Leg Burke. Now, the Beeb wrongly suggested a sexual relationship had developed between Charles and Tiggy Leg Burke at the time of his marriage to Diana. So with no evidence whatsoever, the Beeb was suggesting that our future king was getting his Tiggy leg over with this young aide. A flat lie which was devastating for Leg Burke and had huge implications for the royal family and in particular for Diana. This story is all part of the wider Martin Bashir panorama scandal. The disgraced journalist and BBC lifer engineered an interview with the princess that effectively ended her marriage, destroyed her mental health, and ultimately led to her exile from the royal family and her untimely death in a Paris tunnel. Having set that train of events into motion, do the BBC have blood on their hands? Are they indirectly responsible for Diana's death? You tell me. But it's certainly something that was hinted at by her own son, Prince Harry, who said the ripple effects of a culture of exploitation and unethical practices ultimately took her life, whilst William said the following. He said, "It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failure contributed significantly to my mother's fear, paranoia and isolation that I remember from her final years with her." Damning stuff. But the Beeb have form on this. Look how they treated poor old Cliff Richard. A national treasure, incredible singer, total cultural icon, but harassed to within an inch of his life, with the Beeb flying helicopters over his property in relation to an alleged paedophile scandal that never was. They meted out the same treatment to the great DJ and rock music expert Paul Gambaccini. And yet, they ignored the true horrors of Jimmy Savile, arguably Britain's worst ever paedophile and a BBC icon, with countless crimes committed on BBC property. Ironically, Newsnight were working on a report that suggested this monster was as dodgy as a 9-bob note, but the report was suppressed by senior figures at the Beeb because they were planning a special programme to celebrate Savile's life. The Beeb fixed it for Jimmy, didn't they? Hubris, arrogance, stubbornness are all qualities embedded within the psyche of our national broadcaster. Never humble, never accountable, never sorry. Just this week, the organisation has suffered widespread opprobrium in relation to their so-called documentary about people who haven't had the vaccine, who, of course, they label anti-vaxxers. So what if people don't want a vaccine? Why is it the job of the BBC to convince them? I'm triple jabbed, but perhaps those unjabbed looked at data like this from the German Health Ministry this week, who have pointed out that 1 in 5,000 doses of the vaccine causes serious illness. 1 in 5,000. Not a great ratio, that, is it? If your chance of winning lottery was 1 in 5,000, you'd be buying tickets all day long. Many fear that that figure is just the tip of the iceberg. So what does the BBC hope to achieve with a programme like this, which guilt trips the 4 million people in this country who are unvaccinated and who haven't dropped dead, by the way? Funny that, isn't it? Pressure to have the jab, as reflected in these shows, are deeply unethical ways for programmes to operate. The bottom line is that, yes, the vaccine is predominantly safe, but there are rare and serious side effects. So why is the Beeb getting involved in this? And vaccine mandates, where you have to get jabbed to keep your job or your freedoms, a disgrace. Do the Beeb really want to be part of that? It's a cruel irony that even though you pay for the BBC, it wants to tell you what to do and what to think. Along with other establishment media, the Beeb were one of the key proponents of the COVID narrative, that we've got to mask, we've got to get jabbed, and we've got to lock down. Well, look where that's left us. With a broken economy, a broken society, damaged kids, and an NHS waiting list of up to 12 million people. We literally paid for the BBC to scare the bejesus out of us for 2.5 years, with their fear porn, endless scenes from hospitals, without a thought for those impacted by the COVID measures, including the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, who will die because their illness was ignored. All for a virus non-fatal to almost everyone. The Beeb have some great journalists and are responsible for some great output. But they can't resist propaganda, can they? A single narrative on COVID, which I believe has now been proved wrong. And now a single narrative on climate change. Hey, I want to clean up the planet and I'm no climate change denier. But is it the BBC's job to lecture us every night or to imply that the science is settled? Because it's not settled. The science is settled was the theme of the pandemic, but that wasn't settled either. Lockdowns are now starting to look like the biggest balls up in history. Here's a graph with 2 lines in relation to the pandemic. The red line is for countries that locked down, and the green line is for countries with no lockdowns. Oh dear, as identical as a pair of Playboy bunnies. And remember, the non-lockdown countries in green have suffered far less economic, health and societal damage. And this echo chamber narrative is now being replicated when it comes to the climate. Take a look at this tweet from Paul Embury, a trade unionist, a voice of the left and a GBNews presenter. Yes, we do diversity of opinion on GBNews. Paul wrote, tonight's 6 o'clock news on BBC One should have been introduced with the words, there now follows a party political broadcast on behalf of the Green Party. Now, ITV, Sky and others can do as much propaganda as they want. They are private companies. Good luck to them. In the end, viewers will decide. And I'm honoured to say that I'm normally beating Sky News about now. All thanks to you. But what sticks in the craw about the Beeb is that you and I are paying for all of this propaganda and paying for the organisation's massive mistakes, like its handling of the Panorama interview. It's an organisation with too much money, too much power and too much influence. It's my view that we are literally being paid to be brainwashed by the national broadcaster. We must keep the BBC because it's a colossal resource with a glittering history and admiration which reaches well beyond these shores. But if it can't learn to be politically neutral and deliver a range of programmes that serve the whole community, not just the politically correct metropolitan elite, then like the dinosaurs, this big beast will ultimately become extinct. We don't pay almost 159 quid to be bullied, lectured or convinced to have a medication some don't want and many statistically don't need. Auntie is, of course, the nickname for the BBC. And Auntie knows best, doesn't she? She knows best about COVID. She knows best about the vaccine. She knows best about Brexit. She knows best about this government. And she knows best about climate. Look, we pay the licence fee to be informed, educated and entertained. Well, lots of people now want their money back. In an ever-changing media landscape, people are voting with their remote control and taking their business elsewhere. So what is the future of the BBC in tomorrow's world? A bleak one if they keep finger-wagging and making content for just a section of their population. The network that gave us Pointless is starting to look like the weakest link.